Hey there, welcome to another episode of the Coffee Solo audio program. I am your host, Dan Hugo, as usual. This is episode 2026-04-2501. By my math, that makes it Saturday, April 25, 2026. We're recording this at 7:12 a.m. Pacific Daylight Time here in Greater Vegas. We're in the next season. I always start numbering at 0, as all good programmers should. On April 20th, we hit 1 year since the very first episode of season 0. So here we are in season 1. It was a couple days. I was thinking about doing an episode on the 20th, but we're in season 1. Doesn't matter on which day we kick that off. So here we are, season 1. Yay! I mentioned in the last episode that I would be using my nasal fresh more. I think I said every day, but I have not used it every day. I've done. When I first got it, by the way, the Nasal Fresh is linked in my buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo page if you're interested. A little plug there. Well, it's just an affiliate link. It's not sponsored or anything silly like that. When I first got it, I was using it morning, night, and it started to burn because I use saline. And I figured, okay, let me see what I can get away with. So I think it's had a positive impact. I've been able to breathe more, which is always a good thing. It's one of my wish list items every time, breathing. So that's been good. And then I used it last night, but not this morning. I have found, like when I was first using it quite a bit, I found that if I did it too soon before I was about to record any of my audio programs, it was sort of the opposite of being congested. It was more just nonstop running, and we can just leave it there. I think if you know, you know. So I'm also drinking some. I'm trying to hydrate more. So I'm drinking every morning. I have some chia seeds that I've left overnight, so they're all poofy. It's literally called mucilage that comes off of the seeds and makes it sort of like a jelly. But it's supposed to have a lot of omega-3s, not enough to replace like a salmon or a fish oil source for your omega-3s, but it's pretty good. Fiber, all kinds of good stuff. Plus, I start off with the water that's in it, so I don't rush right over and make a coffee. And then as well, because my morning coffee, the chia seeds are floating around. Usually I would make a morning coffee, and my morning treat, if you will, is my cappuccino-ish. I think, I don't usually foam up, but I use heavy cream. It's lower in sugar. So I have a frother. I don't have a steam wand because I don't have an espresso machine. I have a manual espresso press, which is kind of fun. I haven't used it in a while, but normally it's an AeroPress and then heavy cream frothed up. I do have one of those Dreo frothers. Thing's amazing. Arguably, I think I read some review. If you don't have a steam wand, this is pretty close. So I enjoy. But anyway, I put that on the cappuccino setting, which does not make cappuccino foam. So I don't know what their labeling is in the little selector menu. But either way, it makes a nice heated dairy that I put into my cappuccino. Well, that is also not good for the body. Anyway, so I don't want to get too much into gross this morning. Suffice to say, I feel a little bit better. I'm able to breathe, like I said, and hopefully my voice is sounding a little bit better. And I'll continue probably almost once a day. Probably once a day as we're in the allergy season here in Vegas. So once a day is probably right. Probably at night. So there you go. Do you feel better now? I hope so. I do. So it is April 25th. We're already almost through April. It's insane. I mentioned we're in the allergy season. Joy. When I first moved here, it was much worse. When I first moved here, I moved here in August. So I missed my first exposure to the real allergy season of Vegas, which is basically now, and it's through May, usually, but it can move around. Dust, wind, the wind is, the wind and the dust go together. But there's just something in the air. It probably atomic testing related. Who knows? Whatever pollens and whatever visitors to the valley of Vegas. It's not really a valley, but whatever they bring with them, we got it. So the first I moved here in August. I started working for Intel the following February, basically. And so February of 2014, started work for Intel, and I traveled to Ireland was it the end of April, beginning of May? I think it was the beginning of May. But I had enough allergy season introduction in Vegas so that I was coughing and not enjoying myself. And people were like, oh, you have the Vegas croup. You're either going to get the runny eyes or the coughing or both. So it gets in your lungs, whatever it is, and you get a little. So I went to Ireland. I was there for 5 weeks. And the first 2 weeks, I was coughing so much that I lost my voice. And they're like, what's going on? I said, I don't know. Whatever was in Vegas is in my lungs, and I'm coughing it up, apparently. It was awful. Lost my voice. Crazy. I was drinking tea every morning at the Breckies at the Intel canteen. So they would do, if you're there in the morning, you do the stand-up meeting, and then you go to breakfast. So it was a little team building. So yeah. Quite a time. Anyway, today's title, Indivisible, literally just came up with that moments ago. I was going to just see what happened, but Indivisible, and I'll tell you why. I was watching a YouTube channel, and as it happens, I was watching, what's her name? Sarah Longwell and Jessica Tarlov. Not Boris Karloff, but Jessica Tarlov. Jessica's from The Five and also does a podcast with Scott Galloway. She's pretty reasonable, and I think she has a PhD in something. I'm not trying to be surprised or anything, but I think people often view her as like, oh, you're just the token liberal on the Fox show. But she's actually extremely well informed, I think, and pretty reasonable, not overly compensating for her 4-to-1 stacked odds on that show. And then Sarah Longwell, she's a little reactionary and whatever. But the thing that I came up with, and then so there's a focus group show they do, and those are actually interesting because they're focusing on what the people, I guess, what the people are saying when Sarah does her podcast, her focus groups, and then they review them on the podcast. So they'll play actual excerpts of the responses that people are giving and so on. So they were talking about how most people do not want to be a divided country, which arguably we are. Whenever you do the red state, blue state thing, and then you try to convince people, well, that's electoral college, right? That's an all or nothing take. But when you actually look at voting down to the precinct level, when you get stats, very mixed. Neighbors are different leanings and so on. Sorry, had to take a sip there. So, I mean, even though like Las Vegas is considered a fairly liberal part of Nevada, but Nevada is generally more conservative. So swing state, right? Could go either way. I think we have a Republican governor now. We had a Democratic governor. What was his name? Totally spacing on his name. Sisolak. So Sisolak, and now we have Lombardo. Who knows where it will go next? So that makes it kind of interesting. But the take home that they were talking about was that people generally don't want to be divided. It's frustrating to be angry with your family and friends and to always be talking about politics when normal people should not be talking about politics all the time. They should be talking about life and enjoying life and pursuing business and jobs and working and family and all that stuff. So the whole reason for the republic is to vote for representatives, and they go do the politics. And even that has become super divisive, and now it's very team sport oriented, right? Us and them, all that. So I was thinking, it's right there in the Pledge of Allegiance. What? So the summary that I've written ahead of time here When is the last time you recited the Pledge of Allegiance? Let us assume there's only one that comes to mind without further qualification. Do you remember it? And I have some other stuff to talk about too. So yeah, I was like, you know what? It is right there. Maybe it's not the pledging to the flag so much. Maybe it's a quick reminder, kind of a subliminal, the one nation. Now, I think it was Eisenhower who added the under God part, but it was one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's not unreasonable. Those are some of the fundamental tenets on which this country was founded. The framers of the Constitution were very into making the system that they were devising work so that ultimately the people would benefit, not the government. The government was supposed to operate in such a way as they empowered or enabled the reasoning of the people through their representatives. The Electoral College, for example, reason over passion. Should we allow the general public to vote, to weigh in on issues? Well, people will vote very passionately on the issue at hand without necessarily considering the ramifications and the implications and the long term and the short term and how this works with other parts of the overall system as far as bills and laws. And okay, that all sounds great. But I think we've seen that that's sort of slipped away a little bit. And so you end up with our Congress as very us and them. And that just fits right in with the us and them that's pervasive. And it's kind of, it should be troubling, hopefully. And so, yeah, indivisible. But first, the links, since I already read the summary. Hopefully, wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a brief summary. Okay. I've managed to just memorize that, and I say it at the beginning of all my programs. So I read you the summary. The links are just as usual. I was thinking maybe I should link to, but no, I really want to keep this as a more spontaneous, or if you're really interested, you can find certain information. There may be an occasion where I really want to link to something, and I should do that. Although what I'm really leaning into, like, I should have a page per episode with the links, the notes, whatever I put on there. And that way, I won't have to depend on the formatting and what it looks like on and you're not going to be able to find it in some cases, depending on how you're consuming your podcasts. The YouTube video description, I don't know if that formats correctly every time. And then plus, if I ever want to edit something or add a link, correct something, I shouldn't have to do it in 25 different places. So ideally, and why do I say that? Because not every single platform will reread an RSS feed from the past. So I may have to upgrade I may need to update something, a link. I may need to add something. Maybe I want to just add a comment like, oh, this was the answer to that question, whatever it is. So sometimes podcast repeaters won't go back in time across 150 episodes or whatever. They only do like the last 20. So to be able to post a podcast today, have it spread through the podcast verse, and then be able to make an update that everyone will find if they really look for it. First of all, do people click on links in the episode descriptions? No idea. Probably not. And then I could put some tracking on, but yeah, really. So that would be like a passive way of tracking, right? If I have one link here, the links are in the link in the description points to the homepage for Coffee Solo, for example, which is my own danhugo.com. Then I could actually see, and refer might be a problem. Some browsers block refer when you click on stuff. Some applications may not pass it. So I would love to know where people are coming from, just for curiosity. But podcasts are not supposed to be so tightly coupled. So something to think about. Do I want to have links? Do I want to have links on a page per episode and so on? Anyway, that's not what we're talking about today, though. Indivisible. Sorry, I'm drinking I already mentioned that. So Coffee Solo homepage, danhugo.com. Why? Because Coffee Solo and Buy Me an Update are not they were not intended to be real shows that are produced as separate entities. Coffee Solo was intended to be exclusively published on Ko-fi.com. I've had Ko-fi.com, ko-fi.com, and buymeacoffee.com/danhugo. I've had those for 5 years. 5 years last month, March 2023. No, 2021. 2021, 5 years. Why do I say 2023? No idea. I always do that though. So 2021, March 2021, I signed up for these when I was doing Quaggling Sand and FFS Talk. And we were also doing Hugo Floss, which will make a comeback at some point. But so I got these two sites, two kind of landing pages for the purposes of sort of self-promotion. And hey, if you want to buy me a coffee, that's fine. So these are not really revenue generation. They're more about just getting some thoughts out, engaging people if I can have guests again, and so on. So Ko-fi.com/danhugo/posts was the original place where this would be published. That's not really the best way to publish a podcast. So then I said, well, I'm just going to split it. Ko-fi.com initially for Coffee Solo, and then I'll publish it through the usual Spotify for creators, which I'm not a fan of, but it does work. And then, I guess I'm not going to go get another domain. I have too many. So I figured, I'll just attach. This is this is a vanity show, right? This is just me rambling. And Buy Me an Update could honestly be referred to from all of the other programs I do. It's only 5 minutes. So I'm like, I'll just stick it on my vanity homepage as well, danhugo.com. So there you go. And then buymeacoffee.com/danhugo is where you can find links to all of my programs. Ko-fi.com does not offer the same sort of freeform profile page. So I could post something similar. I could make a post that is not audio, but just a text. And I could say, hey, here's my links. But that would roll off the bottom of the updates, the posts. So yeah, buymeacoffee.com/danhugo is convenient. It's something I don't have to maintain as far as a website and a domain and the tools and so on. It's not a great site. I don't really ask for people to buy me a coffee per se. A couple of people have over the 5 years. Nothing to, I didn't go out and buy a Ferrari or anything like this, but it's nice to have the ability to engage in that way. And also Buy Me a Coffee is a well-known brand at this point. So to say I have a Buy Me a Coffee profile, it's like, oh, okay. And it I have all my links there. So I can just say it's right here. It's understood what it is and so on. I could maintain that myself on my own homepage. And, obviously I should have links to everything I'm doing everywhere. But this works. And it's not for making money. It's just for that connection. Connecting me, you, and all of my various efforts, podcasting, projects, etc. So when I was in high school, I don't know if I've mentioned this here. It's tricky when you have multiple shows and you have different sort of timelines and topic focus areas. So when I was in high school, a long time ago, I was in Air Force Junior ROTC. I did think I was going to go to either the Air Force Academy or I was going to become a fighter pilot. I was always, I loved flying. I still like flying. Should I have gotten my private pilot's license? Maybe. It's a super expensive hobby. I don't know. I did get a very high score on the Air Force Officers Qualifying Test, the AFOQT, and a pretty reasonable chunk of that is aeronautics, right? Is aircraft orientation and instrumentation. What should your instruments say for an aircraft in this orientation? Some kind of like interesting level of detail. So because I was in JROTC through high school, 4 years, and I was already interested in flying and I already had an engineering mindset, it's pretty straightforward. So I was kind of looking forward to that. I did not have sufficiently good vision to become a pilot in the Air Force. Later, they would relax some of the standards. But when I went for my physical to go for my Air Force Academy application and then also No, that's the only place it was being used. So I went to Luke Air Force Base in Phoenix area. And I think it's actually in Goodyear or something. Went there, spent all day. They dilated my eyes. That was fun. And I did the whole day of, blood tests and everything. And the guy says, all right, I'm going to give you 20/20 today. And in all likelihood, this is the last time you will get a 20/20 vision test, especially in the Air Force. So I was like, oh, okay. He's like, be aware you have a certain type of astigmatism. It's just not, and you can't, they don't allow astigmatic keratotomy surgery for pilots. Now I think they do. I think they've relaxed their eye surgery, corrective surgeries constraints. But at the time I was like, well, okay, do I really want to do this if I'm not going to be able to fly? Because I still enjoyed the Air Force and all that. Anyway, that's for another time. So, but when I was in high school in AFJ ROTC, the school was very supportive of their ROTC program, by the way. They were very supportive of extracurricular everything, sports, band, theater, drama, chess club, everything. The school was generally pretty good at that stuff. So every morning, someone from the ROTC squadron at the other end of the campus would visit the office, and the morning announcements. I think they had like a third period actual announcements if there were any announcements to be made. But first period, just as the school bell rang at 8:00 in the morning. Good morning. This is Dan Hugo. I was a Cadet Lieutenant Colonel Dan Hugo, and today is the date, probably reminiscent of my podcast introductions. Moment of silence, and then please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. And we actually had the pledge in the announcement room with the PA, public address system. I think it was hanging on the wall or something. The pledge was printed on this piece of wood, like a big giant bookmark, and a very thin piece of lacquered wood. So it looked nice, and it had the pledge typed on it. And it was at least once, and it may have been twice, from the whole 9-month school year, where I literally forgot the words, and I had to glance down and I go, okay, because it becomes so rote that you just start saying it, and then your mind can wander as you're speaking, and then you're like, oh, is it Indivisible or Liberty or what where are we? So that was that, but I think it definitely once, and it may have been twice, but it wasn't 3 or 5 or 10 times. So just definitely one that I remember being a little bit like, uh-oh, I'm on a live microphone talking to everybody. Now what? And our school was like 1,200 people. Good times. So when you start reciting it and it's rote, you may recite it to get it over with, right? I think that's what 99% of people do, because in school they pretty much have students say the pledge every day. And there's a really sort of interesting Pledge of Allegiance, U.S. taken over by other country. There's a book, and I'm trying to remember a book which includes a new teacher. No. Oh, okay. There. I should know this. The Children's Story, Children apostrophe S, The Children's Story by James Clavell. So if you find, there's a YouTube video. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to go to YouTube. This way I don't have to give you the link. Should I give you the link? Maybe. Because I know it's on YouTube. It's actually worth watching. Like, maybe I will break the trend and actually include a link. Let's see if it's there. Hey. Yeah, it's there. Oh, it's there. Yeah, I think this one's, okay. So there's one, it's not the best quality now. All right, I just pasted it in. So I paused so you didn't have to go through all that. It's the full length version. Now, I first saw this on television when I was very young. I don't know if I was very, very young, but I was before high school. I think it was in junior high, maybe. The the premise is interesting. And I want to say that when I did see it, it was a presentation on PBS maybe or something. And Peter Ustinov, or Ustinov, I can't remember if you pronounced it either way, famous actor of Russian descent, I think. He introduced it and commented and so on. But it's definitely now. So if you do watch the video, it's a probably digitized from a generational copy of a VHS tape of the program. So it's not like original broadcast quality. It's more recorded quality. It's a little bit noisy. It's not ideal. And it is a square NTSC video. It's not high def. It's not even 720. It looks like it's 640 by 480 classic from VHS tape. And some of you don't even know what that is. But so watch the video. Do that for yourself. So part of the component of it is the Pledge of Allegiance. So the teacher in the story, and I don't want to give too much of it away. It's kind of, but I mean, they tell you right up front. They're not explicit about it, but it's, the United States has been taken over and is now under new management, and it's them. We're not exactly sure who it is, but they definitely have a more totalitarian bent on things. So part of what the teacher does, it's an indoctrination program at that point, is they're saying, or she says, why are you pledging your allegiance to a piece of cloth? And so on and so on. So I think that's very telling. So yeah, I've included a link today for the first time in this program. So that's how important this is. You may watch it and you'll think, okay, whatever. But so when you say the pledge, even at a young age, you're not really thinking about it, and it becomes a question of, well, I don't want to say it because it violates my faith. There are faith arguments like I shouldn't have to say the pledge at all because of the one nation under God. You can argue that we're not necessarily a nation because sometimes nation is defined as a people of a common cultural or ancestral connection. So we are such a melting pot. We're almost the opposite of a nation. But if you loosen the definition a little bit, we have a common cause and common, you can call it a belief system around the we the people notion of our government, that it's of, by, and for the people. And so but we're indivisible. And this is interesting. If I've been flipping through the Federalist Papers again recently and some other stuff, I think it's important every once in a while to read the manual. And then this is some of the addendum, the appendix. So flipping through some of that stuff, and there was really a lot of time was put into balancing a federal or national, like a single government for a single country, but also respecting the states' rights, which were a big driver of the Revolutionary War. Once they were done, they're like, okay, well, I'm in the nation state of New York. I don't want to be told what to do by someone in Philadelphia, which was where the first capital of the United States was. Well, I'm in South Carolina. I may have something to say about that in 1865 or so, about whether a national level government should have some say in how we conduct our business, right? So the interesting thing, though, is that when kids recite the pledge, it's mostly it's everything. Just say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, done. Let's get on with the day. Let's do our moment of silence, which is also sometimes annoying to people. I think it's 20 seconds. That's a weird thing to require, yes. But the pledge thing, I think it's interesting because what if it is an indoctrination of sorts, it would be nice if it was a reminder that we are supposed to be sort of tackling problems as a country with different states. So the mechanisms of our government are interesting, and they're always supposed to be in tension. That is, they're supposed to be opposite. There's not supposed to be like, okay, we're going to just do whatever the executive branch says, or we're just going to hand over complete control to the top level of government, and we're not going to maintain our individual state sovereignty to the extent that they are sovereign. But they are supposed to maintain states' rights, the the enumerated powers clause, anything that's not enumerated as powers of the federal, I'm not quoting, but it's not enumerated as power of the federal government, is left to the states, right? So the states are supposed to have all the power that's not explicitly given to the federal government in the Constitution or amendments thereof. But everybody forgets that. So that's where you get the unitary executive thinking he can just control everything from top to bottom. And that's when you get some state governments are like, yep, that's it. That's the way it goes. And like, have you read the, no? And so the Bulwark episode I was watching was where their focus groups are saying, it'd be nice if we weren't so divided. There really is. I miss the days when we would argue but not fight. And when you think about it, the Congress, the legislative body of the United States, there were times, especially if you're from the old days, like the 80s, the Tip O'Neill days, the Congress would argue. Now, this is, of course, from the outside, and it's a memory from a long time ago, far, far away. And so some things may be idealized, but the general consensus when people talk about this is there used to be a time when the parties would fight, or they would argue, and sometimes fight. But there was much less vitriol, much less contempt, much less us versus them, much less underhanded, like putting the public at risk for politics. Like now we have, let's just not have Congress in session for months and not take any action, not pass legislation, take direction from the executive branch, which is not supposed to be the way it works. So that's, I think, if we take this as an optimistic notion, whether or not there's a religious component, it's hard to say anymore. But hopefully one of the reasons that you would have this Pledge of Allegiance thing is to remind people that we are supposed to be focused on the sort of a singular view that it's liberty and justice for all is supposed to be the thing, right? The whole reason that this country was formed was because of the oppression of King George and observations made by the framers. And by the way, if you ever read about some of their philosophical references, they were really big on Roman and historical, Roman probably more prominent for some, but they really did their reading. They did their homework and looked at different forms of government, and they had whatever degrees of education and whatnot. So they were looking through time, and they were looking through different types of government and so on. And so Federalist Papers goes into some of the comparisons and so on. And you can read diary entries and other arguments and letters passing between, from one, if you ever want to read the friendship for what it was, of Adams and Jefferson, kind of interesting. You're going to see, like, how do we make this work so that people don't feel like they're giving up their rights to just another monarch, so they do retain some personal and state independence, but at the same time, they're all part of this unified effort. E pluribus unum, out of many one, right? So or if you're an Ubuntu fan, it's I am because we are, right? The Ubuntu reference for Linux users. So I think the indivisible part with liberty and justice for all, if you distill the pledge down to just those words, that's probably the take home. That's the take home that should be taken home. So I just find it interesting, and it'll be interesting to see what happens after, or actually before, maybe come October surprises. But as we're getting, moving towards the midterms, what actually happens, what happens after, what happens when the new Congress is sworn in, if it is. I mean, who knows what's going to happen? And that is a weird place. There has not been, I've been around for a while. I kind of remember Carter and Reagan duking it out before the October surprise, the hostages from, of all places, Iran, being released after 444 days. So that was one of those campaign cudgels, and it didn't help the rescue attempt failing. So Reagan could come in and say, hey, I'm going to get them out. So a certain form of strongman campaigning. Interesting times, though, and I've not seen things so outrageously bizarre Even though some people will say, well, there was all the protests over the Vietnam War, and of course there was the Civil War. That's pretty bad. So whenever people say, we've never seen anything like this, like, well, you should read. You should read a little bit. So things have been worse, but in my personal memory, things are very crazy. And I think the fact that people treat their politics as a fight with friends and family and coworkers and whoever else will listen is a problem. It's not in keeping with the whole notion. Technically, the people are supposed to be in tension with the government, not political parties. Supposed to be, again, that was the whole George Washington address when he was stepping down from office, was that political parties will be a problem. And so really the people should be on the side of the people, and they should be keeping an eye on the government, the fourth estate, if you like, the press. You should be keeping an eye on what they're doing, not on, what what your politically opposed neighbors are doing. Like, you shouldn't be anti-people. You should, disagreements, oh, I think they should do this. Well, I think they should do that. What it shouldn't come down to, ideally, it shouldn't come down to like fisticuffs or political violence. Bad, obviously, but it shouldn't come down to like people not talking to their families anymore. It shouldn't come down to name calling and things like this. It would be nice if there was authoritative and trustworthy news and information resources. That's probably part of the problem. In fact, except for the probably part, is that there's so much agenda-driven information, data flying at everybody. So I think the pledge is actually, I'm not saying like, oh, we should all start saying the pledge, but I'm saying I think the take-home message really for young people, for grade school, where they're often required to recite the pledge, and in my case, I was the leading the pledge on the PA system every day. I think the take-home is that you're supposed to remember that final sentence. The rest of it can go, technically. So something to think about. I've seen a few, well, I'm seeing more and more now, references to the AI bubble. I don't think anybody's arguing now. It is irrationally exuberant in terms of AI-related spending, especially data centers and the hardware that will go in them. I just saw sometime this week that now, RAM prices, memory, ridiculous, up 600%. CPUs, of course, they're harder to come by. And then you have solid state drives, SSDs, and even hard drives, HDDs, are becoming more scarce, less available. And so those prices are going up. So if you're trying to build a computer, good luck. And then I just saw during the week that now power, not necessarily power supplies, but power regulation and some of the other components that go into server motherboards. So CPU, RAM, storage per node. And now you're looking at power regulation and other interface parts and so on. Maybe we're running low on PCIe slots. Now we're running low on Molex connectors. It could come to that. But the thing that's problematic, there are actually many things. There are many, many things that are problematic. But from what I'm seeing now in my spelunking, a lot of the parts are either reserved on risk buys. So I read somewhere that OpenAI, I don't know if this has changed, but they got a commitment to purchase for like a futures contract or something, whatever the actual arrangement was. Because RAM is sort of a commodity at this point, right? OpenAI wanted to purchase 40% of the available memory that was being produced whenever they either tried to or actually got this contract. That's good, I suppose. But now you're looking at OpenAI kind of flailing. The numbers are astronomical. They are going to have to pay Oracle $75 billion with a B, $75 billion a year, and they don't make anywhere near that much revenue, much less profit that they could spend on repaying that investment from Oracle. And then Oracle might be in trouble if that collapses. The list goes on, right? So the interconnectedness, the circular economy within the AI bubble. We have here in Vegas, we have some data centers. One of the nice, quote unquote, nice things about Vegas, thanks to what am I? What was it called? What was the energy company that got screwed over or that screwed people over? Started with an E. Enron. Enron. How could I forget? So Enron wanted to do for internet access or data access what they had done for energy, which was screw everybody over and take profits. So they built these resources that converged in Enterprise, Nevada. I think it's Enterprise. So the south part of the greater Vegas area, which is not actually in Las Vegas, it's in Clark County, unincorporated Clark County. So Enterprise and Paradise are the two sort of big areas in unincorporated Clark County that have stuff. So Enron they were going to corner the market on internet and data movement and so on. So there's very thick connections carrying loads of data, and everything flows through Enterprise, Nevada. So when Enron got in trouble, this person in Nevada named Rob Roy bought all this stuff, pennies on the dollar. So he has all this infrastructure. They built this company called The Switch, and the rest is history. So having data centers here is interesting because you can run a fiber lines to the switch, and you can jump on this bandwidth hub to get data moving around the country. Sounds great. We don't have water. We don't even have enough water for the projected population expansion going on in Southern Nevada. They think it's going to be 3 million people by 2030, I think it is. It's 2.4 million in Clark County now, give or take. So we are not getting more water. In fact, the Lake Mead, where we get our water from, is actually, I want to say it's at 38% capacity or something. This previous winter was very warm, so not a lot of snow, not a lot of snowpack, not a lot of snow melt to run off into our recapture system. So for what it's worth, Southern Nevada especially, but Nevada has a leading edge water conservation and recapture program and study and so on. So a lot of research is done on sustainability of water supplies, given that we don't have one. So if you're building more and more servers, not only is there power to deal with, but also water. They use water for cooling usually. The switch is sort of famous for being 100% air cooled. And for a while, they didn't even allow water cooled systems. I don't know if they're remaining on that, but you save a lot of water that way. They have like guaranteed 100% uptime, not 5 or 11 nines. So they have triple redundant power supply. They have all these cooling patents and how to keep a server rack cool without water running through it. So, okay, interesting. So we have a company that everybody's very excited about here, TensorWave. I won't get into my feelings about it, but I will say that they are in a business. Their management is here. Their engineering, I suppose, but their servers, their data resources to do their compute. That's what the business they're in is compute. Just like, is it Clearwave? What's the data center company? C Clear? I don't remember the name of the company. There are several companies that are in the space. It's becoming somewhat competitive. And so TensorWave has their 2 data center locations, as far as I'm aware. There are 2. They're somewhere on the eastern part of the U.S., so they're not really here. But we do have companies like Switch. We have companies like, it's kind of annoying to me because I continuously forget this. The name of this company. Oh, this is interesting. Oh, wow. This is totally interesting. I'm going to talk about this during the week. If you're curious, CleanView, 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 there you go, .co, public, so /public/data-centers/US. There are other links but that's where I'm looking at right now. And totally interesting. It's showing the data centers that are planned, and there are tons of them. They're everywhere. So they're planned. They're mostly, for us, they're mostly in Reno, in Nevada. I'm sorry, in Southern Nevada. So here in Vegas, What do they show here? Nope, they don't actually break it down. Do they have? Oh, you have to pay for the full list. That's annoying. CoreWeave. That's the name of it, right? CoreWeave. Do we have CoreWeave? I think it's CoreWeave. I'm sorry, I'm totally distracted. Yeah, so CoreWeave. I thought CoreWeave had some resources here in Southern Nevada. Anyway, so CoreWeave is a company that I think is becoming more prolific. There are several, not to mention the hyperscalers, Google, Azure, AWS. There are probably more that we don't hear about so often. And the Switch does a lot of government contract work. So because of the way that they've structured the actual physical resources, the compound, TLAs, three-letter agencies, FBI, CIA, NSA, they have some of their compute resources there. So it's kind of interesting the way they've positioned themselves. But part of the take-home, which is why that chart is interesting, because they do include orange dots of different sizes for planned data centers. All this money that was spent on reserving resources like memory and CPUs and hard drives and everything, and the announcements about data center construction, turns out most of them have not started. They're delayed. And all these plans to go public by OpenAI and what's the other one? The Claude people, Anthropic, thank you. I was like, arthritic? No. Anthropic, OpenAI, and is there another one? SpaceX rolled XAI into them, so they're technically going public. Who else? There may be another one. XAI is buying Cursor. So there are a variety of players, and they're going to start to need more money. And it turns out that a lot of your ChatGPT use, like, oh, look, I had it rewrite my email for me in a voice of Charlie Chaplin. It's a lot shorter that way, the email. But all this stuff that people have been using for free or $20 a month or things like this, or rates like this, these are tremendous loss leaders. And so you're going to start to see more of this. They go to token billing instead of a flat rate. So they start billing you for usage. And I know Anthropic was billing for input and output tokens separately. So suddenly you need to be a little bit more careful about how you word things if you're spending thousands, tens of thousands. And you're starting to see these posts like, Facebook is requiring its employees to use AI at a certain token rate. So you have to spend a certain amount of token money to indicate that you're using the tools. So it's crazy. And then they're also going to start capturing training data from their employees so they can get rid of them. But the take home, AI is too expensive. It's been subsidized by VC money, but they're going to hit the wall where they say, okay, now you're going to have to start paying $1,500 a month, whatever it is. Flat rate might be leaving pretty quickly. Does that mean you're going to get no flat rate services? It's hard to say. Probably, like I've been using a free, like a promotional Google Gemini subscription, right? I had the Pro subscription, but it was promotional. So I had it for February, March. Yeah, I had it for 3 months. 3 months or 4? I think it was 3 months. Yeah, because I think it started on January 28th or something, and it's ending April 30th. So February, March, April, 90 days, give or take. And about 90 days. So I think it was 91 days. So I've been using it for free, and now they're going to charge me $20. Now, here's the thing. I don't really use AI for much. I use it to create cover art for my audio programs because I'm not a creative talented. I'm creative, but not talented when it comes to turning an idea into a visual representation. Cover art is of low value to me for the sake of podcasts. It's probably more valuable for YouTube videos, the thumbnail. So I don't want to have like black text on a white background. So I try to make it interesting, and I put some thought into it, and I have AI do some of the work for me. But I do it's just me. I write my own shows. I record them, me speaking. If I interview someone, it will be another human, right? So to me, and I don't do any vibe coding. I think that's going to be a problem into the future, into the present. So I really don't do vibe coding. I've done a couple of like interactions with the Gemini console, the web through the web. Like probably the most interesting thing I did was and I hate AI because the chat tools of today, they need to convince you that they know what they're talking about, because sometimes they don't. So I said, do you know anything about game theory? And, oh yeah, here's the prisoner's dilemma. And it goes through this whole, like, am I paying for this response if I were paying per token? Because that's a lot of words I didn't need. Yes, no, that would have been sufficient. So I said, yeah, everybody does the prisoner's dilemma. What I would like to do is come up with a payoff matrix for different parts of the greater Vegas area, whether they continue to pursue and sort of give deference to the fun economy, which is professional sports, gaming, tourism, entertainment, and what's the other one? Tourism, entertainment, gaming. Oh, trade shows. Yeah, of course. That's not what the UNLV Office of Economic Development defines the fun economy as. I don't think they include trade shows or tourism. I think they just go with entertainment, like residences, performances, professional sports, of course, and gaming, gambling, right? But as you can see, when the Formula One is in town, for example, tourism goes down a little bit because people are like, oh, you're taking down the trees, you're blocking all the stuff, and that becomes less fun to visit. So they're just not going to come as tourists. And then people for conventions come here and then they spill over. So they're not coming here to be in Vegas so much as they're coming here for the trade show, which is in Vegas. But then they spill over into like, oh, while we're here, we can go see a show, or we can bring the team to dinner, etc. So I would count all 5 of those components. So I do. So if we are leaning into the fun economy so much, well, good, except that there's this economic diversification effort to try to not depend on the fun economy so much because of the pandemic. It was actually started in 2018 to try to, not depend on tourism so much. And then, oops, here's a great example that got foisted upon the greater Vegas area. So now there's this effort to diversify. So my question is, do you lean into the diversification efforts, possibly placing the fun economy component and all of the people that employs at risk? So for a little, like 10 minutes, they were leaning into an entrepreneurial ecosystem and, oh, this is going to be the big innovation hub, startups. And at some point somebody said, oh, wait, startups are not profitable. They don't really add to the economy for a while in the ways that we want. So let's lean into our key industries, which are fintech, financial services, healthcare, sports tech, healthcare/sports tech, like fitness and exercise and wellness and healthcare in general, plus wrestling and performative sports and so on. So that's a key industry here. Okay, great. Manufacturing, which I think is actually a good idea because you can mix sustainability and manufacturing technologies. Okay, that can become a strong thing. But the question is, and especially true with the startup notions, which I think have kind of taken a back seat, my opinion. You risk gentrifying the area, so you price people out who are making the fun economy go. Oh, all we have to do is replace people with robots and AI and we're all good. So they've really leaned into AI as one of the key industries sort of off the books in Southern Nevada. So TensorWave gets the halo automatically. In my view, so I had it generate an example payoff matrix. It did an okay job. It provided a starting point to ponder a few things. So I said, let me see what you come up with. It wasn't what I would have come up with, and it wasn't sufficient, but it was a reasonable starting point. So, okay, rather than telling it to do something, I wanted it to give me an example of something that I want to do, that I want to look at or analyze. So I'm like, okay, it was useful. It's not going to take over, it's not going to do it for me, obviously, because it didn't, but it didn't come up with something that was sufficiently addressing the questions that I want to address. So it did a lot of simplification, came up with a payoff matrix that was ultimately the prisoner's dilemma. And I think we have more than 2 players. So you could come up with like teams of players, which it sort of did, right? So, okay, if one city or region, if there's one team that goes with fun economy and another team that goes with diversified risking, so each would risk the other, then your payoff matrix is similar to the prisoner's dilemma. It's like, okay, that's a very simplified view. Still, that was the most thing. I tried vibe coding once. It came up with a bunch of code that explicitly did not work. And I said, hey, this didn't work. And it said, oh, yes, you're correct. Like, what is this? Some sort of time wasting token farming. Like, oh, well, I'll give you the wrong answer. And then you have to ask again. So we'll make more money, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what they're thinking. So my $20 a month pro subscription for Gemini will renew in 5 days. Now, here's the deal. They give you 5 terabytes of storage, cloud storage. Okay, that's interesting. That just came in handy the other day because I'm like, I gotta move a ton of stuff temporarily, but I don't want to just throw it away. I don't want to store it in some fly-by-night, whatever. Oh, I have 5 terabytes of storage for $20 a month. I can still use the pro stuff, so Nano Banana and all this stuff. So I can make my images, I can do my thing. I can occasionally, but you also get to integrate that with the Notebook LM stuff, which I think is interesting. Not 100%, and then I'm like, and I can try some things. Like I use Obsidian a lot, so I could try Obsidian integration and just see what that does. I could do that with the free one, but I'm like, okay, if I'm going to invest a little bit just so that I'm more familiar, flat rate, $20, 5 terabytes of storage, all the other stuff that comes along with this offering that they're facilitating, not unreasonable. So I'm going to stick with it for a while. Now, if Google were to switch to, if you're using it's token based and they're going to increase their billing and whatnot, then no. So I'll have to see. But I'm sticking with humans in general. And I think as we start to find out that the pricing is going to start, it's going up already for your Anthropics and so on. As the prices go up and as data centers are not started and as more debt becomes a problem and as payoffs don't happen and as promises not kept lead to financial tension, I think there's going to be a little bit of if it's not an AI bubble burst, then it might be at least eye-opening. Maybe there will be maybe we shouldn't have laid off all those people just yet. I don't know. We're already at 1 hour and I've done 2 bullet items and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more. So I think I might be cutting this short right now. And this may be a perfect time for an O2 episode later today. So that's probably what's going to happen. So I'll just touch on, no, I don't want to do that. I'll jump to the end here. So let me, okay. I'm going to touch on entrepreneurial innovation for the win. I talked about this in my episode of Cafe Genius Impresarios yesterday, so the 24th of April. I think it was episode 165. So I'm adding another project to my palette of projects that I need to finish someday or start properly. What I really want to do is not deal with LinkedIn. LinkedIn is becoming a garbage pile of Instagram posts, AI generated LinkedIn style laments and political commentary and too much personal information and just a mess. It's becoming something that's very unappealing. But people still use that to make announcements and to engage with their quote unquote followers. Then their algorithm decides what you get to see and all this. So as I was describing yesterday, I have a page for the Innovate for Vegas Foundation, of which I'm the managing director. I have accumulated basically my own efforts. It's not really a lot of help from others. I've accumulated 954, I think it is, followers of the Innovate for Vegas page, and we've lost a couple of followers over the years. Probably, I'm going to say we've lost maybe 30. I'll say 30. It might be a little bit more, but it's probably something like 30. It might be less. So where you see the number go up, and then it'll go down by 2, down by 3, down by 1. Okay. And I stopped caring about that too much because here's the thing. We have 954 followers, and I believe that is correct. It's 950 something. And we will have engagement because they tell you if you post something like seen by 20 people. I'm like, 20? 20? Maybe some people don't use LinkedIn anymore, but 954 say, and we have 20 views. That's crazy. But because it's the algorithm. It's the algorithm deciding who's going to see what in what order. And that will depend on so not only the viewing audience parameters, but are you posting every day? Are you the LinkedIn SEO rules? And if you follow certain people on LinkedIn, they will tell you, I went from 10 followers to 10,000 in a month. And let me tell you how. And I'm a brand manager. I'm a LinkedIn profile consultant. And you're like, okay, so let me look through your profile. Oh, it's all selfies. It's Instagram with selfies. And then instead of posting a caption like, actually, if you've ever seen like automated posts on Instagram, and I don't even use Instagram. It's been a long time. But if you look at an Instagram post, you'll often see like some attractive person, usually a woman, but it could be anybody. And then they'll post like a philosophical caption, like the future comes from observing and you're like, what is this? It's getting attention, right? Oh, I'll follow this account because attractive person. I don't even care what they say, but you have to say something. So the platform that used to be LinkedIn has now been taken over, and it's basically Instagram. There are people, okay, this is my own editorial. This is not entrepreneurial innovation, but there are conventionally attractive women, I think you would say, or conventionally attractive people. You look at someone and you say, that person's good looking. They're dressed very nice. They look like a confident person. They're photogenic. Okay. So someone posts, and this happens every once in a while, I can't believe I keep getting direct messages asking if I'm single, if I want to go out, or sometimes they're lewd and crude. And I always say, and I'm making a dramatic generalization, but like, this is no longer a professional platform where people talk about their latest work project, announcements, releases, product launches. Every single one of your posts for the last month, because I flipped through real quick. Okay. Posting pretty much every day, scroll. Every single post is a selfie, regardless of what the post is, whatever the content is. It's not something relevant like, hey, I'll be at this trade show. Come and find me in booth, whatever. Hey, we're launching a new product. Hey, we're launching a new service. Hey, we're merging. 100% selfies. So you're putting people in this like, ooh, pictures of pretty people mindset. There was now that's not your fault, right? You're doing what you're doing. The responsibility is with the person who's going to take that action and like be offensive. So I'm not justifying that per se, but the environment of LinkedIn is shifting more towards Instagram, where people are posting the good life pictures and whatnot. Like, don't you wish you could be me? Don't you wish you could be next to me in this photo? So I think it just changes the tenor of the environment, and you're inviting people to behave as though they're at a club instead of in a professional networking, work-related networking platform. So I fault the people sending lewd and crude. I always tell people, hey, my mom has gotten messages like that, and she doesn't even use LinkedIn. So random dudes will, hey, are you married? And she's like, what? So she really gets no value from LinkedIn. That's fine. But so the take from yesterday, my entrepreneurial innovation adventure continues here in Vegas with a return to the old ways and the old days. So the semantic web and a particular vocabulary called faux, friend of a friend, as a kind of a working example. Like, why can we not connect with people? And I'm not talking about like here in Vegas, one of the people that founded TensorWave just had co-founded and then sold Let's Rolo, a reference to Rolodex, right? So contact gathering. So if you're at a trade show or something and you want to, I wonder how many business cards. Oh, do you use Let's Rolo? No, I don't. Well, here's my Let's Rolo profile. Scan it with your phone, and then you can QR code it and all this stuff. And nothing magical. They had a couple of innovations, but essentially it's an electronic business card that you can keep track of in groups of of identities. So I met this person at CES, and so I showed them this profile. I shared whatever it is. I used the product a couple of times, and it was online. And here in Vegas, when you're at a trade show, the internet would buckle the connectivity layer. So thousands of people trying to use a cell phone or Wi-Fi at the same time, you'd end up waiting. And I told the person that founded this company, I said, hey, you need to have an offline mode, because it took me 40 minutes by the time the network connection went through and whatever was going on the back end, 40 minutes. So I scanned the QR code to exchange contact information with someone. And then, we're on to other things. We're not, so if it failed, and then that would be a bummer. So I said, why do you not have an offline mode? And he kind of looked at me like, yeah, I don't care what you think, right? That's the attitude. So there are a variety of reasons, but I don't really care about that person. He's garbage. So, and now they have this AI data center company that is exclusively AMD parts, and they've received $100 million investment from AMD to use 100% AMD parts. So where'd the money come from to buy those parts? Ding, ding, ding. Anyway, so my entrepreneurial innovation list has a new addition, which is to focus on a better way to connect with people. So it could be person to person or entity to person, right? Kind of like a page on LinkedIn. I would like to keep track of what this entity is doing, this Innovate for Vegas Foundation or McDonald's or whatever. And so the thing is to make it federated, just like the federated world we're in now with Mastodon and PixelFed and Lenny and all these services that no longer require that you all sign up for Twitter or Facebook, right? Or LinkedIn. Now you should be able to, you could run your own server. You could run so not even focus on the server so much, but on the tools and methods of sharing your contact information without, if I get business cards, I don't have to ask Twitter to oh, can I use my business cards and share them with people? Yeah, you can just post an image of your business card. But what if we make the passage of information between people or between people and entities, businesses, etc., super easy? Instead of saying, do you have an Insta? Can I get your Insta from a social, personal relationship engagement? Or, oh, can we connect on LinkedIn? Or I'm going to invite you to connect on LinkedIn. Why do we need these intermediary services? I should just be able to say, oh, here's my contact information. And there are ways to do it with phones that are kind of universally accepted now. So QR code that is encoding a Me card, which is a subset of V card. These standards have been around forever. And so you encode your contact like a minimal name, phone number. I think you can put an address in there, a note, and a URL, say. So, okay, I can put my Instagram handle in there. I can put my name. Maybe I don't want to give my name out to people, so I'll just use the Instagram handle. It could be, so you get to decide what you share, and then you can create multiple virtual business cards of sorts. And, okay, I'm out talking to people. I'll use my personal, just Instagram. So you just scan it with your phone, and you don't have to load any software. You scan the QR code. And because it's a Me card, MECARD, it could be a V card too, but because it's a Me card is smaller, so the QR code is a little bit smaller, so it fits. It's not going to get ridiculous. QR codes can be huge. So you mostly see a one cell of a QR code, but they can stack together. So they end up looking like a weird camo netting almost with the alignment boxes. Anyway, so you encode the Me card, they scan it, they don't have to install anything. It will add you to their contacts in their phone, which is what people do often in personal settings. Business, that becomes a little bit tricky because you're trying to add a business contact, but it's stuck in your phone for the moment. So managing these new contacts is a thing to work on. But generally speaking, it's completely offline. You just do it between you and the person you're talking to, and they can do the same for you, vice versa. What people end up doing, if I put my phone number in there, is they send me a text. So I just remove my phone number, like email, send me an email, which they can still do from their phone most of the time. So that's not a problem. Anyway, so I'm trying to come up with a way to get away from LinkedIn I have been using LinkedIn, and I have a feeling this is why the 2023 thing comes up. I started using Buy Me a Coffee and Ko-fi.com in 2021. Sorry. Yeah, 2021. And it's been 5 years. But I signed up for LinkedIn in 2003 when they launched. They launched in May of 2003. I signed up in August of 2003. I've been with them the whole time. So I signed up in 2003, and I've been using that platform for 23 years. So for some reason in my mind, those wires cross. So, I've been using Buy Me a Coffee since 2023. No, 2021. So I think when Microsoft purchased LinkedIn, it sort of took a little bit of a turn. And now that they're completely embracing AI and they're changing their algorithm rules. So, there was a flurry of, the new algorithm, you can post links and you can do these things. And you're like, why am I handing over my personal and professional networks, my classmates from school and people I've worked with through the years and the people that are doing interesting things here in Vegas. And Vegas relies far too much on LinkedIn, by the way. But why can't I use some of these connections in ways that I want to, right? Can I build up a mailing list that doesn't require using LinkedIn? Can I figure out who's in what areas without having to pay a subscription fee? Like who's doing this technology related or government related? So can I get this sorts of information from LinkedIn without paying additional fees? Because I really don't want to give them any money. Come on. So in my view, and then go on to build asset maps for regions based on people opting in and connect. You can do all kinds of stuff if you divorce yourself from these monolithic corporate silos. And so that's where I'm looking. And this does fit into some other things I'm working on. But revisiting semantic data, which I'm sure everybody thought was dead, but semantic data is very much in use today. And if you are riding the AI bubble right now, you know that, maybe you don't, but artificial intelligence scraping websites or interacting with websites. They got MCP, which is the Model Context Protocol. They have agentic technologies, and how are the agents communicating with each other and getting data from websites. There was the RAG for a moment, the retrieval augmented generation, right? Oh, I don't know the answer, but instead of going on my training data, I will visit the internets and I'll look up whatever the current news is or the current whatever. So RAG, MCP, agents, how they're communicating, how are you scraping data from websites? Do you need an API? All this stuff going on. So the semantic web is a way to structure data with an extensible vocabulary, but a consistent file format for the structure. Usually it's JSON LD, JSON linking or linked data. So sort of an augmented JSON JavaScript object notation file structure, but you can use XML, you can use N3, you can use TTL. There's a few different ways to go about it, but JSON LD is common. You can embed it in a web page. So if you've ever looked at schema.org, they have you can use microdata, JSON LD, or attributes, I think are the three ways. So JSON LD is convenient because you can store JSON LD data and you can insert it into an HTML page, or you can deliver it on its own. So it's not embedded in the HTML as attributes and so on. What does all this mean? It means that instead of having to go through a human targeted news article, there should be, or ideally there is, but you can have a JSON LD data chunk in the HTML page or delivered on its own. So some agent or some robot or some automation might come through and say, I need to know who maybe the attorney and what was the case and what was the disposition and where did the event take place for this court case, all this stuff. So you can encode locations and person and interactions and roles. You can encode all this stuff. And schema.org has a substantial schema collection. So you could literally make your human readable articles, the content of your website, maybe it's a news site or a music site or whatever it is, but you can include in it the structured data that is now more and more often machine read, which was the entire intent for semantic web, which was let's, instead of going with prose, like people talking to each other, and by writing it down, let us structure the data so that a computer could come through and see, oh, okay, this person and this workplace, and this is the geographical location, and here's the, just start breaking things down into tagged or structured data. So seems like a great idea, and it turns out it is. So today, artificial intelligence can make faster, maybe more efficient. That may be arguable at this time, but there are many articles now about how artificial intelligence can take advantage of semantic data to actually get more things correct, right? They don't have to, nowadays when you issue a prompt to an artificial intelligence tool, they're doing what's called inference. So part of the process is figuring out what you mean in that prompt and then extracting data, matching it with the model, pulling data from remote sources, whatever they're doing, whatever's going on behind the scenes. So the more hinting you can provide, the better. If you go in a semantic web direction, semantic data. So there's all kinds of stuff. It's been around for decades. FOAF is one of these. Friend of a friend. It's for connecting one person to another. So in my post, in my production yesterday, I included an article from 2020, the Facebook we could have had if we had gone with this open platform protocol methodology of, you can post a FOAF file in your homepage, on your homepage. Technically, you can embed the FOAF data in a web page, but then right away you've lost 80% of your your people that are curious about this. What? I got to embed things in a page? I don't do any of that. So can I embed my FOAF data in my LinkedIn profile? No, they want to control that data. But if you happen to have your own personal website or personal web page somewhere, and if you can add some data to it, you can point to an FOAF file or any variety of other things. So you put a little link in your profile page in the header, the HTML header, right? I've lost 80% of the remaining 20%. And then you fill in some stuff about like, here, I'm connected to this person and that person has an email address, all this stuff that's already been decades old. And so one of our projects for Innovator Vegas Foundation is an extension of that called Tile. So our initiative, Project ACT, Autonomous Cohort Tessellation. Tile, tessellation information linking entities. So it could be a person or a cohort of people, or it could be a company, it could be anything. And you connect them through personal contacts, through projects, and so on. So it basically becomes a superset of friend of a friend and description of a project, DOPE, DOAP. And there's some other vocabularies that could come into play there, and we can add our own. That's the nature of all this. So we can essentially come up with a document in a standard structure with defined vocabulary that doesn't have to be viewed or consumed by normal people, that can be created with something like HTML forms, right? What's your name? What's your preferred email address? Whatever it is. So you fill in some blanks, and you can have more blanks and make it more and more detailed. Then you publish this in such a way as that people that want to connect with you can find that information. The mechanisms are defined, and you could come up with your own. But it enables people to say, oh, I would like to share my contact information with you, my work contact information. And you can see my work network through this if I choose to let you, if I implement that. So now you're not beholden to LinkedIn for their rules. You are adhering to the protocol of how to share information, and you are deciding how you share what with whom. So, and we can extend that in a couple of different ways and make it a little bit more useful or flexible or more security conscious. I'm fascinated with having multiple profiles. I described what Let's Rolla was doing. One of the problems with semantic data, the structure of, say, FOAF, for example. Okay, we're using FOAF. You are Dan Hugo with your personal email address, dhugo@danhugo.com, dan@danhugo.com. But I also want to share my business card with a business colleague or associate or someone at a trade show. I want to share my dhugo at reallycool.com information. That's my LLC. I've had that domain for since 1996. So what is that? 23. That's another 30 years. Yeah, 30 years. Wow. I registered in March of 1996. So if you do whoisreallycool.com, if you happen to be near a command line, or you can just type in like who is Google who is whatever, whoisreallycool.com, creation date March 12 to 1996. 30 years of having my first vanity domain. Vanity being, I didn't have a company at the time. Now I use it as my company website, Really Cool Technologies LLC here in Nevada. I've used it like that for California and Arizona too when I lived in those places. So there you go. The ability to make use of the current state of affairs, technology, free pages, free home pages, GitHub has free stuff. There's a lot of different ways to establish your basic presence online. And then you could have your file describing your stuff on anywhere that you can host free, like file sharing. It could be, you could encode it as you can share documents in places, you can share files in general. You could create a GitHub account, you could create a GitLab account, you can, for free, right? These are all free. And you can have this file that says, here's my contact information, and here are the people I know, and it points to where you can get their contact information. You don't need to publish their contact information. But the point I was making was I can have two different forms of presence. And if you read about pluralistic issues, like how do we know if Dan Hugo, dhugo, or Dan at danhugo.com is the same person as dhugo at reallycool.com? And it's like, well, maybe that person doesn't want you to make that association, right? Maybe I want to have two different identities of sorts and not technically be the same person unless I want that connection to be made. And if that's the case, I can literally say, oh, by the way, I have two email addresses, home and work, right? That's never been a problem for phone numbers. So I think the pluralistic thing is a little bit of, what is it? The paralysis through analysis paralysis. So you're thinking too much. These are corner or edge cases where you're like, oh, what about when you say you work at a place? Does that mean, what if you were a contractor at that place and you actually have your own company? Do you work for your own company and that place was a client? Okay, we can tackle that. So mixing up the context of a workplace causes people some angst, and there are a variety of examples like that are more nuanced. And it's like, well, that doesn't mean you stop using this otherwise useful collection of file formats and protocols and so on. So that's basically where I'm leaning in my pursuits of this additional thing. So Project ACT is our nonprofit initiative. So it's like open source and free and all that. And then the thing that I want to implement enables normal people to make use of these instead of depending on LinkedIn, which is becoming more and more shitified. If I can go blue for one moment. The Cory Doctorow book, he coined the phrase some years ago regarding TikTok. Now it's become part of the lexicon of the world. But he published a book recently. I read it. It's got a lot of interesting stuff. A couple of things that I was around for, he's kind of glossed over in the internet early days. Worked at Netscape, and but anyway, so the book on the whole is very insightful, and it's worth giving it a read, and you'll start to notice like, oh yeah, LinkedIn used to be very cool, and now they are not. But so many people, the exit cost, I think it is, the switching cost, right? I want to switch to some other thing. Oh, but all of my work colleagues use LinkedIn, so I can't leave. That's a problem. That is the only reason I am still using LinkedIn, is because I have 3,400 connections or something like that. And I've removed a lot of connections. If people are no longer reachable, if they don't respond in any way, maybe they're no longer around, So, I would probably be well over 4,000. And I used to have a rule where I only connected with people I knew in person. So that's why, I mean, I could have had 50,000 if I was just going nuts. Hey, I work at Intel. Ooh, okay. So now I have 10,000 followers because I worked at Intel, perhaps. So I never pursued that route. So I always went with people I actually know. And so I probably could add a lot more. But anyway, so of those 3,400 people, how many people respond if I reach out to them? Very few. How many people actually follow and engage with any of the things I post on our relevant pages? Very few, like 20, 30. And even then, it's only looking at it. They don't like or reshare or comment. So at the end of the day, LinkedIn, to me, even though I have this huge network of connections, the value of the connections continues to fall. I don't think that's because people don't like me. Could be. But I think it's because people just aren't as engaged with LinkedIn. They use it as a connection, like collecting business cards. But if you go to a trade show and you get 25 business cards, or if you go anywhere, you get 25 business cards, are you going to contact those 25 people? If you're in sales and the meetup was about transactional client development, new client development, right? Then sure, you're going to contact all 25 people. How many of those 25 are going to respond? That's a different story. So I think LinkedIn has become so mechanized, so automated, so Instagram-y, so it's just garbage. So I don't know that it's still valuable to treat it as a tool of connection. It's a tool of network maintenance, right? I have your contact information and, oh, you changed jobs. Okay. So now maybe I have access to your new email address or your new job role at a new company. You can do all that without LinkedIn, right? So everything I've just described here, you can do just as well. So the value of LinkedIn to me is my connection database and very little else. And to believe that it has other value to offer is probably an error, like 80% of the time. So the people that are beating the drum for LinkedIn, I think, are making money from doing that as consultants, brand managers, LinkedIn profile consultants, business development through LinkedIn. The list goes on. So there's all kinds of variations. You can find all these people and they all follow each other. So once you follow one or two, you're going to start seeing other people that they follow who follow them, and they're commenting and they're cross promoting, because that's how LinkedIn works. So I think it's gross. I think it's garbage. And I would like to make everything old new again, like technologies that did work and still work can be used to leave out the big corporations. I haven't used Facebook in forever. I still have a Facebook account. I still have a Twitter account. I still have a Blue Sky account. I still have an Instagram account, but I don't use them. So if I do visit them, it would be more like, oh, I wonder if this person's still around. Yeah, okay. So I can use them for mild reference. If someone has a if somebody has an Instagram post, that it's easier to view it if you have a LinkedIn account, unfortunately. So these chaperones are protecting their interests, not yours. They're protecting their interests by, oh, you have to log in. You have to have an account to view this. I think all this is driving us farther and further maybe, away from the initial notion of the internet, which was like, oh, you should be able to publish what you want. You should be able to connect. You can deep link. You can do all these things that the design of the internet is about. It's not perfect. But once you put up paywalls and corporate ownership and the enshittification process, eventually you are only helping that company become more valuable, and they've made it difficult for you to leave through a variety of strategies. And if you read the book, it's very interesting. I'm not shilling for the book. It is an interesting read, though. So there you go. So I've split my list of topics. So I have four bullet items that I will move to a part 2 of today's episode later today. I'll jump on that, or it might be tomorrow. So we'll find out. But anyway, so I'll move the anything else to the next episode too. So we might get an episode 2 today, or we might get another one tomorrow instead of waiting for days and days, because I have tons of other stuff to say. I cannot do 8 hours a day as some people do streaming nowadays, but 1 hour and 36 minutes on my clock. We'll see how it pans out when I do the silence truncation and whatnot. Anyway, thanks for listening as always. Don't forget to check out buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo for links to all of my audio programs. You can follow me on ko-fi.com/DanHugo or buymeacoffee.com/DanHugo. You can be a follower or whatever they call it, subscriber. All of these things are free. So, or you can follow any of my audio programs. The RSS feed is available on the individual Spotify for creators' profiles. I need to move all that stuff to the primary points of publication for each of the audio programs if they have a homepage. I just got done telling you can do all this stuff. RSS feeds, by the way, RSS version 0.9 before Dave Weiner got his hands on it with RSS 2. So RSS initially was RDF site summary, resource description framework site summary. So that is the language, that's the file format of the semantic web. So OWL, the web ontology language, of course, move the words around, the letters around, OWL, and then you put that on top of the RDF syntax and structure and method. So resource description framework, language, web ontology language, and then you tack on things like, audio programs or whatever, or articles. So RSS 0.9 was already semantic web friendly, and Dave Weiner didn't like I would rather just use XML. So our RSS 2 is arguably less capable. It is still extensible, but it would be interesting to me to see if RSS 0.9 could have continued to evolve and if it would fit better in what's going on in the world today with semantic web. If you use the federated web, the Fediverse, they make heavy use through ActivityPub and Activity Streams of web semantic web ideas. They're essentially compatible. They use JSON LD with vocabularies that are extensible. So that's the semantic web right there, pretty much. So yeah, a lot of interesting stuff going on. Either way, if you do want to follow any of those shows, go right ahead. We're also on Apple Podcasts, Apple iTunes, whatever they call it now, Amazon Podcasts, Spotify, of course, YouTube. I don't have any subscribers to these channels on YouTube, but it has been an interesting process about some of the problems that YouTube has, marking things private at random, things like this. So getting used to how YouTube fails sometimes has been a good learning experience. And plus they do automated transcription. So that's one way to make my shows accessible, which is important. And that's all I got for you right now. I'm going to end it. Otherwise, I'll just keep talking for another hour, and I might as well do the other 4 bullets. But I'll save those for part 2 today or part 1 tomorrow. Talk soon. Bye-bye.